100% thumbs up. Onward. Greg, spoiler-free version. How are you feeling about touring after the apocalypse?
I feel like they tried to pull at the heartstrings too early.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't get the same feeling. Also, because the characters in this show, we don't really know them all that well, and we're getting like weird little bits of information. It's not as easily identifiable and like instantly like you're in the shoes of these characters watching all of these things happen. I don't really have that attachment to Japan like these characters do, and probably these voice actors, so it feels a little lost on me. But I do think that it is cute for the most part, and then the seriousness of the episode is a little sad. I was like, oh wow, that is a little heartstring. I appreciate that.
I just feel like it was too soon, because if we take what I consider the direct comparison to this, which is Apocalypse Hotel, we had everyone at the hotel, we had the Tanukians, and then we had other characters visit the hotel. But it wasn't until like episode 8 or 9 that we experienced our first loss of life. And I feel like that was super impactful in Apocalypse Hotel. And that's because, I mean, we basically had 6-7 episodes to learn about these characters before one of them actually died, and they had the full wedding funeral send-off.
Yeah, that was a beautiful episode. There was a lot to that episode. I think this wasn't supposed to be like... I think this was just like, hey, we're traveling through the world. These are remnants, and that I think that this show is going to continue. A good example is, I think, what was it, World War Z, where it's a bunch of short stories, and they're like one-shots of what's happening in the war, rather than it being us following these characters. Like, we'll have these two characters, and we'll have their experiences and their main storyline, but the other ones are just kind of there, and their stories are wrapped up very quickly.
I wonder if this is going to be like the theme where they start ramping up the loss. Because if we remember from episode 1, there was technically like a loss, the tank. They almost considered the tank a person. And then when she went in there to cut the wires or whatever, it'll set the tank at rest. And then they left the flowers for the tank. Obviously, we're just kind of like, oh, yeah, it's a fucking machine. Nobody cares. But now, episode 2, we're going to see it's like they took it up like a little bit of a notch of like, it's still a machine, but is it?
That's the thing. You are shown that he is... The character brings the top half of an animatronic thing over, and it's like, oh, I found a person, and you're like, that's not a person, that's a machine. And then you get the information of like, oh, this was a person that was completely transferred consciousness into, you know, I didn't story was supposed to be spoiled.
Yeah,
let's
just get into it.
Let's get into it. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Touring after the apocalypse, episode 2. We have a flashback, I assume, to the past, and Yoko and Airi are in a bunker, and they look at more photos of places on Yoko's smartphone, and it shows the Hokkaido Milk Road and the Tower of the Sun in Osaka and the Himeji Castle. I've been to the Tower of the Sun. My last Japan trip, I was in Osaka, and I saw that. So when I saw the picture of it, I was like, damn, they really threw some references in there.
That's sick.
I felt something tingle in my chest.
As our foremost authority on Japan of this show, I've never been to Japan, so I have no ties.
Yeah, I don't know, like the tingle in my chest, it could have just been a stroke or the onset of a stroke, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Probably your doctor if you ever saw one, but didn't see one.
Yoko's sister shows up on a screen, and she's like, you love the outdoors, don't you? And she's like, hell yeah. And she says that when she goes outside, she's going to do what she did and travel Japan on a motorcycle. Yoko's sister says it's dangerous outside right now, and they won't be able to leave the bunker. And then they start like a remote class for the girls. And Yoko is like, man, I want to go out sometime. So we get a little bit of backstory here where Yoko and Airi were just literally in a bunker, not allowed to go outside.
It was Fallout.
Yeah, basically. They were in a vault. And we now know that they are outside of the bunker. So something must have happened to the bunker where the girls had to leave, and now they are on the outside.
Well, I don't know if it was like a have to leave situation, because it seems like these bunkers are supposed to be self-sustaining for hundreds of years, you'd imagine, because we see the overgrowth and stuff. But they could have left of their own volition of her being like, I have to get out. You know, like, what was it, Cloverfield Lane, where John Goodman, or was it, yeah, John Goodman has to try and get the survivors into his homemade bunker because shit's going crazy.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you watch Cloverfield Lane?
Sounds familiar.
Did you watch Cloverfield?
Sounds familiar.
Greg, all right, let's go.
Cuts back to the present, and the girls are at the sea now, and Yoko yells out like she did to the mountains last episode, and Irie is like, you only yell in the mountains. And Yoko is like, well, what do I yell at the sea? And Irie is like, I guess fucking idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. But Yoko is like, okay, cool, I'll do that then. And then she yells fucking idiot to the sea. Yoko is like, something smells. And Irie is like, that's seawater. And she's like, oh shit, I wonder if it's salty. I want to go down for a drink.
Don't do that.
No.
Fish pee in there.
I mean, humans do too.
There's not that many of those left at this point, so.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right. The girls start driving on their bike and sing another song, but Yoko has to slam on the brakes as the bridge they're driving on is broken and they can't get across. So I have a note here that says they do sing a lot of songs in this anime, and I assume that these songs are like folk songs for each city and probably exist in real life.
They do. I would imagine so as well. As your
I didn't look it
foremost
up.
authority. I didn't either.
Oh yeah,
But
you are the
it
authority.
definitely.
Yeah.
But as we see later in the episode, one of the other characters that we meet soon also is singing a song, and they both know that song.
Yeah.
I thought about it because, like, how much music surrounds us as people any given time is pretty interesting in the current iteration of humans. If you think about how hard it was to see music or to hear music in history of humanity, like, this is all a recent thing of easily accessible music. Like, until, like, the record player existed, you used to have to go somewhere and people would sing a song, create music, or do a cover. It was an event. And now, music is so, like, I could just click Spotify, even if I don't have an account, and just, boop, I could just be listening to music right now. That's a very different world that this show made me think about how easily accessible music was. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, after the advent of the internet and computers and MP3s and that sort of thing, it was a little more easily accessible. Before that, you had CDs. Before that, you had cassette tapes. Before that, you had records. And there were people that dedicated entire rooms of their house to just being like a listening area where people would come over and that's what they would do. They're like, hey, you want to listen to this new album? And then they just hang out and fucking sit in a room and listen to shit together.
Yeah, it kind of wild to think about. And the transition of it being like a group experience to being a solo experience does make sense. If you look at it from a bird's eye view of the timeline of music in general and how it used to be an event and then it became a smaller, more isolated event where you're bringing over friends and family to listen to music in a room and, like, I don't know, do a podcast, or what was then a podcast, which is just two people talking in a room. And then now where like a lot of music is solo, and then you go to a bar to have that camaraderie music event where everybody's listening to the same thing. I think it's very interesting. The evolution of music is wild to me. And being involved in the music industry, stuff like this makes me think about it a lot.
I think it is really interesting because before the record player, yeah, as you said, you had to go to a concert or go to a show or go to like a live music bar or walk on the street and maybe someone's performing on the corner. And then even before that, if we go medieval times, it's like you had your traveling fucking bards with their lutes, and then they sing a song and tell a story and people gather around to listen.
Yeah. Wild. Music is wild. But nowadays, like, I don't know if you have the same feeling, but like seeing street performers is a very different experience than what was possibly before. Like, street performers seem strange to me because of how rare they are. But I imagine back, if you were having any sort of festival, you had hundreds of street performers around just doing stuff. Anyways, let us continue with the episode.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment, but let's go.
Oh, no,
Yoko,
go ahead. What was your comment,
no.
Greg? No.
Okay. My comment was Yoko is like, well, our destination should be right over there. And all the buildings are mostly submerged in the ocean. And she says the pictures her sister took were all when the sea level was lower. Yoko's stomach rumbles and she's like, time to catch some fish. And Irie is like, sick. I'll go look for some other shit. Irie looks through some abandoned cars as it shows some atmospheric shots of the surrounding areas. Irie tries to catch some seagulls, but they fly away. But she sees something in a pile of trash. Cuts back to Yoko and she's fishing and then daydreams. And we have a flashback / daydream sequence of her hanging out with her sister at Yokohama and talking about the sights and where they're going to eat. And apparently, Yokohama is famous for its Chinese food. This is the other place that I have been in Japan, the Ferris wheel at Yokohama.
Oh, shit, yeah?
I have been to that exact place that they had in the picture, and I thought it was cool.
Were you on the Ferris wheel, Greg?
No, that was like my first or second trip to Japan. I went there, and I did want to ride it, but I was back then a little too nervous to ask how much tickets were and if I can buy a ticket and looking like, you know,
like a dumb
tourist. Yeah. So I just didn't do it, and I just sat there and watched other people do it and tried to live vicariously through them.
Right. You were like, wee, and you put your arms up and down.
Whoa. Yeah, I think that's what you do on a Ferris wheel.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, that's what I do on every Ferris wheel. I don't have a nervous fucking panic attack because I'm afraid of heights. I definitely just sit there and I go, this is so much fun.
Whenever I'm on a Ferris wheel, I always think about, what if the car I'm in, what if it like falls?
I can't not think about that.
But then I think about, how am I going to escape alive? So then I have all these ideas that I'm like jumping off debris and parkouring down the Ferris wheel.
Oh, man.
If it happened, I'd probably just be dead. So
Yeah, 100%. We would definitely not have the reaction speed to get out of the car fast enough.
But it cuts back to the present, and Yoko was still daydreaming, but then catches a fish, and she reels it up. But then a shark jumps out of the water and eats it, and all she is left with is the head. She grills up the head, but then Irie rolls up, dragging half a robot dude with her, and she said she found a human, and she connects it up to the motorcycle to get him powered on. They think it's broken, but then he springs to life and greets the girls, but then freaks out that he's a robot and he doesn't know who he is. Irie is like, you aren't a robot, you're a human that had your parts replaced with machine parts, a cyborg. And back in the day, turning people into cyborgs was used to ensure survival on patients who sustained severe physical damage. And she recites his model number of H Company's military model P45. So we get a little bit of insight into this character. If he has a military cyborg body, that would mean he was probably in the military. If you look at the shirt he's wearing right now in the screenshot, it looks like a Navy shirt. So we can assume that he was in the Navy of some sort. And we will see a few more hints later on in the episode. But this procedure was probably reserved for military members. I don't know if anyone can just go get military model P45 bodies and run around in them.
I would assume also that they have it because when you're still stationed or you still want to continue to be in the military, they give you this body. Very Warhammer 40K up in this bitch. So, terrifying experience to think about. As this episode goes on, the horror of being... Like, okay, when they show his view, they have it lit up like a bunch of LEDs in front of his face. And that is my greatest fear. Like, the claustrophobia that I could possibly feel, knowing, like, what the world looks like, and then going to, like, an LED screen and feeling almost caged in. Oh, yeah. Woo. No. Not for me. When I go, Greg, do not rebuild my body in a cyborg unless you give me like really cool HD graphics.
Or like I put you in the thing that David had in Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
Okay,
yeah, and then you
maybe
then you just get cyber psychosis, and then
no,
Adam Smasher just curb stomps you.
No, please don't. No. Not again. I don't want to relive it. R.I.P. David.
Yoko is like, oh shit, this is the first time meeting a human in person. You look different from what I imagined. And she shakes his hand and introduces herself. He's like, well, I don't know my name, so call me Schwarchan. And they're like, Roger that, boss. And he's like, wait, that was a joke. But all right, let's just fucking roll with it anyway. Yoko starts hammering him with questions, but he's like, man, I don't remember shit. But then she's like, wait, something is attached to you. And it's a photo of his family that says, taking a walk at Robot Dad's workplace. Yoko is like, oh shit, that's close. Let's all go by bike and maybe you'll remember something. They roll out and Robot Dude starts singing, and then the girls start singing too. And it sounds like the Yokosuka national anthem or something. And then a hawk flies by and he fucking salutes Bald Eagle. Schwarchan is like, hey, why is it so quiet? And Yoko is like, well, that's because no one is here. And he's like, oh, nobody? And then he reboots as they drive through a tunnel. Schwarchan has a flashback to when he was first booted up and his family is there to see him back online. It says it's reading the backup memory and the restore has started.
Oh, were you reading the Japanese?
Yeah. Of course you knew that because you...
Yeah, because I obviously could read all of that.
Back to the present. The girls are like, hey, you good? And Schwarchan plays it off, but then his memories start to come back to him as they get closer to the port. They keep driving, but the road is blocked by a submarine. And Irie and Schwarchan are like, oh shit, a Soryu-class submarine. So this is more evidence that he was in the military because he knows what kind of submarine this was. But then also it makes us question, why does Irie know so much about military robot model numbers?
I'm wondering, I mean, obviously we saw her android it up and shoot a beam out to blast that tank. But later in the episode, we get a moment where it's kind of awkward in that Yoko's humanity... We'll get there. We'll get there, and I'll go through it.
Right now at episode 2, I think we can make the same assumption that Irie is probably the same as Schwarchan here. She was human, but she was cyborged up because of something that happened. And maybe it has to do with them escaping the bunker or something like that. Because I always question, like in episode 1, we saw her like literally blast that tank with her fucking beam arm or whatever, right? But I was thinking, oh, okay, so we have Yoko, he's a human, and then we have Irie, who's a robot. Okay, cool duo. But in reality, Irie could have been human, and she was put into a robot. And it's also, when she brings Schwarchan up for Yoko to see, she's like, oh, it's a human. And then she then says it again to him when he boots up. He's like, you're not a robot, you're a human. So I think she has this affinity towards cyborgs, like considering them humans, even though they have the bodies of machines.
Yes.
Yoko is like, damn, I wonder if we can go around. But then she looks at her phone and is like, wait, this is the place, but it's all submerged by the ocean. They pick up Schwarchan and he walks to the end of the road and they see a shark. But then an even bigger aquatic animal jumps up and like headbutts the shark into the air.
He fucks that shark up. Aren't orcas known to just fuck sharks up every now and then?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
They are.
Okay.
Schwarchan says it was an orca, but they shouldn't be that big. But Irie says that some species are showing signs of mutation due to the endocrine disruptors, and large size is one of them. And then 2 smaller orca roll up and they're like, oh, it's a mother and kids. That's nice.
She was like, could be a danger to my kids. Time to headbutt. And then just fucking into the sky. That shark didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, as we saw in episode 1, they weren't actually satellites. They were just
yeah, it was just the orca blasting sharks into space and the sun reflecting off their shiny skin.
Then Yoko starts yelling, fucking idiot, at the ocean. And then they all start doing it. But Schwarchan is really putting some emotion into it. It's getting dark now, and Yoko puts a jacket they found on Schwarchan as he looks at the picture of his family. And Yoko is like, hey, you want to come with us? And he tells him that they're on a journey to see a bunch of places. Schwarchan is like, I'd love to travel. And Yoko says they can probably get his body fixed at her sister's place when they find it. But Schwarchan is like, you know what? I'm going to hang out here for a bit. And then the wind blows, and Yoko and Irie look like they know what he's talking about. Schwarchan says his name is Suzuki Ichiro, and he's like, I can move with my arms. And he said it was fun hanging out with them, so no need to worry about him. The girls ride off, and Yoko is like, hey, Irie, what would you do if you were alone? And she's like, well, I want to be with you forever. And she's like, sick, me too. And they continue on.
Intense words. Like, you have your android who is possibly nearly indestructible, and what we know as Yoko as human, or as human as we understand it, and her saying, I want to be with you forever. It's like, that's a tough pill to swallow. You know?
Using a cyborg body, and then you can do it forever.
Yeah, but Yoko's, I mean, she's going to, best case scenario at this point, she's potentially going to die of old age. And, well, I guess best case scenario, she turns into a cyborg and her and Yoko have the best time ever. But there's nobody else in the world. Where's she going to get her sweet cyborg body? Where's she going to transfer her consciousness?
At her sister's place.
Okay, all right. You might be right.
Night falls, and Ichiro remembers the disaster that befell the Yokosuka port, and his family was still there. So it's assumed they all died, right?
Yeah.
In that disaster. So
Yeah.
Ichiro's battery is at 0.2%, and he lets himself run out of juice while looking at the picture of his family. And then his lifeless half-robot body tumbles into the ocean, leaving behind the jacket that Yoko and Irie draped him with. And now he's returned to his family. And that's how episode 2 ends.
I think this show, so far, it's doing an okay job of, like, humanizing the cyborg characters or the android characters. But like you said, we didn't really get a lot of time with Ichiro. So how do we attach? It does feel strange a little bit, but I understand what they were going for. The emotions were there. I felt it in my heartstrings. I'm not dead yet.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of like strummed him a little bit.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like Acrobatic Silky where they ripped him out of my chest.
Yeah, and then shit stomped him. And
yeah, then hung me with him. That's why I'm like, hopefully they didn't pull this card too soon. And I haven't seen episode 3 yet. So I'm curious if this theme of like loss is going to perpetuate through the rest of the series. And then each episode, it's going to get stronger and stronger. We'll see. Because I feel like if we had maybe another episode or 2 with Ichiro and then they did this, it would have hit a lot harder. But I feel like me explaining it in my notes potentially had a bigger emotional impact than me watching.
Okay. So, like, my theory on it would have been like this. This should have been a 2-episode thing where he kind of is like, yeah, you know, I'll come travel with you guys for a little bit. But, you know, starting to gain my memories back, and then they go through another town, have a really good time, and then he kind of realizes, oh shit, I don't think I can survive in this world anymore. I don't want to be here, and I was already gone, and you guys brought me back. There's that aspect of it. Like bringing back the dead. If you could, would they want to be here? If you could bring back your 180-year-old great-grandfather, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. That's, I think, would have pulled at the heartstrings a little bit more, but I also do want them to continue on and see more of Japan. So that was my thing on it.
Yeah, it just reminds me of the episode of Altered Carbon where they put the one girl's grandmother inside of this big white biker guy's body or whatever. And I know I've said it before in the podcast. I'll say it again. That guy deserves like a fucking Oscar for that performance of being this gigantic biker, but then speaking fluent old grandma Spanish. But it's the same thing in that episode. They had dinner and everyone got to see her or talk to her again. Obviously, it wasn't her original body or whatever. But at the end of the episode, she's like, yeah, you guys got to let me go. I don't want to be living in someone else's body. And I died a long time ago. So,
right.
You know, I'm glad we had dinner and shit and it was nice to catch up. But,
and to bring it back to a great show, this is what Yuji and Sukuna are going through. Like, Sukuna didn't necessarily ask to come back, but he's going to make the most out of it while he's here. Greg's like, that's so fucking stupid. That was Greg's face. Just so
he is.
I'm translating. Fingers. He does have 20 fingers. He does have 4 arms. We do know that. But actually, it does remind me a little bit of JJK, funny enough, because this is the ultimate JJK fucking me. Yuji and Sukuna are diametrically opposed people. Yuji will sacrifice himself to help others. Sukuna will sacrifice everyone to help himself. And could you imagine inhabiting the same body as the person that you hate the most in the world, and then watching them make the decisions. I couldn't imagine a worse hell for either of them. And that's the whole point of like Yuji, I think, as a main character. I love him, man. I love that show.
It's like trying to coach your friend at playing League of Legends for the first time.
Sukuna is fucking Faker trying to coach the gold rating fucking mid laner who thinks he's just trying to help. He should be a support player, but he doesn't know better.
And there's nothing you can do. You just have to sit there and just yell constantly as he misses skill shots and wastes his flash to flash backwards with 1 health, but then die of like a minion auto attack.
Yep. Okay, great analogy for League of Legends and JJK, Greg. Great one.
Yeah.
Really,
Don't forget
nailed it.
Altered Carbon. That's a really good series, by the way.
Yeah,